I never thought my own mother would call me 3 days before Thanksgiving to uninvite me from our family dinner. But there I was, sitting in my cramped one-bedroom apartment, holding the phone as she delivered the crushing news with the emotional warmth of a weather report. "You won't be at Thanksgiving this year, Austin," she said matter-of-factly. "Emma's new husband, Derek, thinks you'd ruin the vibe with all your negativity." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Me, the family peacemaker who had spent years helping everyone through their problems, was suddenly the unwanted guest. The next 18 months had been pure hell, and apparently my family had been keeping score the entire time. My wife Sarah had left me for her personal trainer Marcus, a guy who looked like he belonged on the cover of a fitness magazine rather than stealing another man's wife. She took half our savings, our golden retriever Bailey, and whatever dignity I had left. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, along with the foreclosure notice on our house. I lost everything I thought was permanent in my life within the span of 3 weeks. My career collapse happened almost simultaneously. The tech company where I'd worked as a senior software developer for 8 years suddenly announced massive layoffs. Despite my seniority and stellar performance reviews, I was among the 200 employees who got walked out that Friday afternoon in March. My boss Jim shook my hand and said budget cuts were targeting the highest paid positions first. I cleaned out my desk while security watched, carrying my personal belongings in a cardboard box like some corporate cliché. The job search was brutal. Every interview seemed to go well until they asked about the gap in my employment or why I left my previous position. Tech companies wanted fresh graduates they could pay half my previous salary, not a 32-year-old man with mortgage payments and alimony obligations. After 4 months of rejections, I finally landed a position at a smaller software firm called Data Flow Solutions. The pay was 60% of what I used to make, but it kept me fed and housed. Throughout this nightmare, I thought my family was my anchor. My sister Emma called regularly, letting me vent about the divorce proceedings and job interviews. My parents invited me for Sunday dinners and assured me things would get better. I felt grateful for their support, though I noticed subtle changes in how they treated me. Conversations became shorter, invitations less frequent, and their advice started sounding more like judgment. Emma had her own dark period 4 years earlier when she struggled with addiction after college. I was the one who researched treatment centers, drove her to rehab, and paid the $15,000 program fee when our parents hesitated. She lived in my guest room for 6 months during her recovery, and I helped her rebuild her life piece by piece. When my parents faced their own financial crisis 2 years ago, I lent them $15,000 to save their construction business. Dad called me his responsible son, the one the family could always count on. But now that I needed them, everything felt different. Phone calls went unreturned. Sunday dinners became monthly, then stopped altogether. When I mentioned feeling lonely or struggled to pay bills, I saw expressions of frustration rather than empathy. Emma started making excuses to end our conversations early. My mother began suggesting I should focus on moving forward instead of dwelling on my problems. I met Derek at Emma's wedding 6 months ago. He appeared charming and successful, wearing an expensive suit and talking confidently about his marketing executive position at some company called Summit Strategies. He had the kind of easy smile that made people trust him instantly, but something about him made my skin crawl. During the reception, he made several comments about my divorce and career situation that felt like friendly concern but carried an underlying edge. "It's tough out there for guys our age," Derek said while we stood at the bar, "especially when life doesn't go according to plan. Emma mentioned you're really struggling to get back on your feet." The way he said struggling made it sound like a character flaw rather than a temporary setback. When I tried to change the subject, Derek persisted with questions about my living situation, my job prospects, and whether I was dating anyone yet. Emma was so radiant and happy that day. She kept thanking me for walking her down the aisle since Dad was recovering from his back surgery. "You've always been my protector," she whispered before the ceremony. "I don't know what I'd do without my big brother watching out for me." Her words meant everything to me, especially during such a difficult period in my own life. But Derek's behavior at the wedding planted seeds of doubt. He seemed to know details about my personal life that Emma couldn't have shared casually. He mentioned my therapy sessions with Dr. Peterson, my temporary prescription for anxiety medication, and even my brief struggle with drinking too much wine after Sarah left. These were private matters I'd only discussed with Emma during our most vulnerable conversations. The discovery that would change everything came when I realized Derek had been systematically turning my family against me by weaponizing every private detail I'd shared with Emma during my darkest moments. He painted me as unstable, bitter, and potentially dangerous to be around. Every vulnerable admission I'd made to my sister about feeling worthless or questioning my future became evidence of my deteriorating mental state in Derek's carefully constructed narrative. Sleep became impossible after that phone call from Mom. I spent the entire night pacing my apartment, replaying every family interaction from the past 6 months. Something felt fundamentally wrong about how quickly my family had turned against me. Emma and I had been close our entire lives. She wouldn't just abandon me unless someone was influencing her decision. At 3 in the morning, I opened my laptop and started investigating Derek's background. His LinkedIn profile looked impressive at first glance, showing employment at Summit Strategies, Pinnacle Marketing Group, and several other corporate-sounding companies. But when I dug deeper using my software development skills, cracks appeared in his story. Summit Strategies had no website, no physical address, and no employee directory. The phone number listed led to a disconnected voicemail. Pinnacle Marketing Group existed, but their employee directory had no Derek Matthews. When I called their human resources department, pretending to verify employment for a background check, they had no record of anyone by that name ever working there. The pattern continued with every company listed on Derek's resume. Either they didn't exist, had been closed for years, or had never heard of him. Derek's social media presence also seemed artificially constructed. His Facebook account only went back 8 months, right around the time he started dating Emma. His Instagram showed expensive vacations and luxury purchases, but the photos looked professionally staged rather than personal. There were no candid shots, no tagged friends from his past, and no family photos older than his relationship with Emma. Public records searches revealed even more disturbing information. Derek's real name wasn't Derek Matthews, as he'd told our family. Court documents showed someone named Derek Morrison, involved in multiple civil lawsuits related to financial fraud, identity theft, and breach of contract. The timeline matched perfectly with gaps in Derek's fake social media history. The most chilling discovery came when I found restraining orders filed by 2 different women against Derek Morrison in Colorado and Nevada. Both cases involved similar patterns: whirlwind romances followed by financial manipulation and psychological abuse. One woman named Jennifer described how Derek isolated her from her family by convincing her they were jealous of her happiness. Another victim, Patricia, detailed how Derek slowly gained access to her finances before disappearing with her inheritance money. Police reports painted an even darker picture. Derek had been investigated for elder abuse in Arizona, where he convinced a lonely widow to transfer her property deed to his name before vanishing. He was suspected of running online romance scams targeting middle-aged women, using multiple fake identities and stolen photos to build trust before requesting money for fake emergencies. The pattern became crystal clear. Derek was a professional con artist who specialized in targeting women from affluent families. He would research potential victims carefully, learning about their family dynamics and financial situations before making his move. Emma was perfect because our family had money and property, plus she'd been vulnerable after her addiction recovery. Derek's strategy involved isolating his targets from their support systems by turning family members against each other. I was the biggest threat because Emma trusted me completely and relied on my judgment about important decisions. Derek had to eliminate my influence before he could fully control Emma and gain access to our family's wealth. I tried calling Emma 17 times throughout the night, but every call went straight to voicemail. My texts asking if we could talk received only cold, one-word responses that didn't sound like her usual communication style. When I finally reached her the next morning, her voice sounded distant and rehearsed. "Austin, I can't keep doing this," Emma said without any warmth. "Derek showed me the things you've been saying about him online, the way you've been trying to investigate our relationship. It's creepy and obsessive. I need you to respect my marriage and stay out of our business. But I hadn't posted anything online about Derek. I hadn't contacted anyone in his circle or made any public comments about their relationship. Derek was clearly fabricating evidence to support his narrative that I was becoming unhinged and potentially dangerous. My parents refused to take my calls entirely. Dad's secretary at the construction company said he was too busy to speak with me. Mom's phone went directly to voicemail, and she never returned my messages. Derek had successfully poisoned every relationship I valued most in the world. That's when I discovered Derek had already begun draining Emma's bank accounts. Using her online banking login that she'd shared with him for convenience, I could see thousands of dollars being transferred to accounts belonging to his shell companies. Emma had recently invested $30,000 in something called Morrison Marketing Solutions, which appeared to be Derek's latest fake business venture. The morning after Thanksgiving, I sat alone in my office at Dataflow Solutions, trying to focus on debugging code while my family enjoyed their Derek-orchestrated gathering without me. The building was mostly empty, since most employees were extending their holiday weekend. I welcomed the solitude because it meant no one would ask why I looked like I hadn't slept in 3 days. Around 10 a.m., my assistant Jessica buzzed my desk phone. "Austin, there's someone here to see you. Says his name is Derek Matthews and he wants to discuss a business opportunity with you. Should I send him back?" My blood turned to ice water. Derek was here, in my workplace, less than 24 hours after my family had celebrated Thanksgiving without me. This couldn't be a coincidence. I told Jessica to send him back, my mind racing through possible reasons for this unexpected visit. Derek walked into my office wearing an expensive charcoal gray suit and his trademark fake smile. But I noticed tension around his eyes that hadn't been there at Emma's wedding. He looked around my small office with barely concealed disdain before settling into the chair across from my desk. "Austin, good to see you," Derek said with manufactured warmth. "I hope you had a nice, quiet Thanksgiving. Sometimes we all need a break from family drama, right?" The casual cruelty of that comment made my stomach clench, but I forced myself to remain calm. "What brings you here, Derek?" Derek launched into an elaborate story about starting his own tech consulting company and needing talented developers for contract work. He claimed to have heard about my skills through industry connections and wanted to offer me freelance opportunities that could supplement my income significantly. "I know things have been tough since your divorce," Derek said with fake sympathy. "Emma mentioned you're struggling financially, and I thought maybe I could help. This contract work could pay up to $8,000 per month, but it would require you to relocate to Phoenix within 30 days to be closer to our client base." The offer was obviously designed to get me even further away from Emma and my family. Phoenix was over 1,000 miles away, making any future contact nearly impossible. But I played along, acting desperate and grateful for his supposed generosity. "That's incredibly generous," I said, trying to sound relieved rather than suspicious. "I'd definitely be interested in hearing more details." Derek became more confident as he sensed my apparent eagerness. He started dropping details about my personal life that only Emma could have known. He mentioned my therapy sessions with Dr. Peterson, including specific topics we discussed about my feelings of failure and inadequacy. He knew about my prescription for anxiety medication and my brief period of drinking too much wine after Sarah left. "Emma's really worried about you," Derek said, his voice dripping with false concern. "She told me about your breakdown last month, when you called her crying at 2 a.m. And the way you've been obsessing over our relationship instead of focusing on rebuilding your own life. She thinks a fresh start somewhere new might be exactly what you need." Each revelation felt like a knife twisting in my chest. These were private moments I'd shared with Emma during my most vulnerable periods, times when I had reached out for support from the one person I trusted completely. Derek had weaponized my sister's love and concern against me, using my pain as ammunition to build his case for my removal. Derek also revealed he knew about my online investigation into his background. "Emma showed me the browser history from when you used her computer last month. All those searches about my employment history and personal life. It's concerning behavior, Austin. The kind of thing that makes families worry about someone's mental stability. But that was impossible. I had never used Emma's computer, and I'd conducted all my research on Derek from my own devices. He was either lying or had somehow gained access to my internet activity through other means. The accusation was designed to make me doubt my own memory and feel guilty for protecting my family. Then Derek made his fatal mistake. He became overconfident and started dropping hints about his plans for our family's financial future. He mentioned how Emma had been asking for his advice about optimizing their father's business investments. He casually referenced conversations about our mother's inherited property and whether she was making the best use of such valuable real estate. "Your family's been so welcoming," Derek said with a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Your father especially appreciates having someone with business experience to bounce ideas off. He's been asking my opinion about expanding the construction company, maybe bringing in some outside investors to fund bigger projects." Derek also revealed he knew I'd been snooping around online, trying to find information about his background. He warned me that any attempt to spread lies about him would result in legal action and complete estrangement from my family. His friendly mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the calculating predator underneath. "I've already spoken with a lawyer about harassment and defamation," Derek said coldly. "If you continue this obsessive behavior, I'll have no choice but to pursue criminal charges. Emma won't have any contact with someone who threatens her husband's reputation and safety. Neither will your parents." The most shocking revelation came when Derek casually mentioned he'd been recording some of our family conversations to protect himself from my increasingly erratic behavior. He threatened to release edited versions that would make me look unstable and dangerous if I didn't agree to relocate immediately and cut all contact with Emma. "I have recordings of you threatening me at the wedding reception," Derek lied smoothly. "Audio of you making inappropriate comments about Emma's marriage and expressing violent fantasies about people who've wronged you. Your employer might be very interested to know about your mental health issues and aggressive tendencies." After Derek left my office, I sat in stunned silence for 20 minutes, processing the magnitude of his threats. He held all the cards: my family's trust, their financial vulnerability, and apparently recordings that could destroy my reputation and career. But Derek had made one crucial mistake during his visit. He didn't know my office was equipped with security cameras that had recorded our entire conversation. I immediately saved the footage to multiple backup locations and called my friend Marcus Rivera, a private investigator who'd helped me during my divorce proceedings. Marcus was a former police detective who specialized in fraud investigations, and I trusted him completely. Within an hour, he was sitting in my office reviewing the security video and taking detailed notes. "This guy's a professional," Marcus said grimly. "Everything about his approach screams experienced con artist. The way he's isolated you from your family, gathered personal information to use as weapons, and positioned himself as their protector while painting you as the threat. I've seen this pattern dozens of times." Marcus agreed to fast-track a comprehensive background investigation on Derek Morrison, using resources and databases not available to civilian searches. He promised to have preliminary results within 24 hours and a complete report within the week. The preliminary findings arrived the next morning and confirmed my worst fears. Derek Morrison was wanted in 3 states for various fraud schemes, including elder abuse, identity theft, and wire fraud. He'd been using multiple fake identities for the past decade, targeting vulnerable women and their families across the southwestern United States. Marcus discovered Derek's current marketing company was actually a shell corporation registered in Delaware with no legitimate business operations. The company existed solely to launder money from his various criminal enterprises, including online romance scams he ran simultaneously with his long-term cons like the one he was pulling on Emma. The private investigator also located Derek's previous victims, including both ex-wives who were willing to provide detailed statements about his patterns of manipulation and abuse. Jennifer Walsh from Colorado described exactly what Derek was doing to my family, isolating the target from her support system by turning family members against each other, then slowly gaining control of financial assets. "He convinced me my brother was jealous of our relationship," Jennifer explained during a recorded phone interview. "Derek showed me edited text messages that made it look like my brother was spreading lies about him. By the time I realized the messages were fake, Derek had already stolen $60,000 from my savings account." Patricia Gonzalez from Nevada shared an even more chilling story. Derek had convinced her to give him power of attorney over her finances, after claiming her adult children were planning to have her declared mentally incompetent to steal her inheritance. "He made me believe my own family was plotting against me," Patricia said. "I signed over everything because I thought he was protecting me from them." Marcus's investigation revealed Derek had already made significant progress with Emma's finances. She'd invested $30,000 in his fake company and had recently refinanced her house to access additional equity. Derek had convinced her the money was for expanding their business partnership, but the funds were immediately transferred to offshore accounts he controlled exclusively. Most disturbing was the discovery that Derek had been systematically drugging Emma with mild sedatives slipped into her drinks. Marcus found evidence Derek had purchased Rohypnol and other date rape drugs online using false identities. Emma's recent medical records showed she'd been experiencing memory problems, anxiety, and confusion that aligned perfectly with symptoms of chronic low-dose sedation. "She's not thinking clearly because she literally can't," Marcus explained. "He's keeping her in a fog, so she'll agree to his financial requests without fully understanding what she's signing. It's a common tactic among financial predators who target romantic partners." The investigation also uncovered Derek's broader criminal network. He was part of a sophisticated romance scam operation that targeted middle-aged women through dating websites and social media. While working his long-term con on Emma, Derek was simultaneously running shorter scams on dozens of other women, stealing smaller amounts to fund his lifestyle and operations. Marcus discovered Derek had been pressuring Emma to convince our parents to let him consult on their business investments and retirement planning. Our father's construction company was worth over $2 million, and our mother's inherited real estate was valued at nearly $800,000. Derek wasn't just targeting Emma's modest savings. He was positioning himself to steal our entire family's generational wealth. The most terrifying discovery came when Marcus found evidence of Derek's exit strategy. He'd been planning to fake his own death in a car accident after systematically draining all accessible family accounts. The plan involved staging a crash in a remote area, leaving behind a burned vehicle with planted dental records, while Derek escaped with a new identity to repeat his con elsewhere. Emma would have been left devastated and broke, Marcus explained. She'd spend years grieving a man who never existed while he's living comfortably in another state with her money, probably already working his next target. Derek had even researched how to make the fake accident look like suicide caused by stress over my harassment and threats. His plan included leaving behind a note blaming me for driving him to desperation, ensuring I'd be investigated for his death while he disappeared safely. I realized Derek was planning to execute his final phase during our family's Christmas gathering in less than 3 weeks. Marcus had uncovered emails showing Derek convincing everyone to pool their resources for a once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity that required immediate action before year-end tax deadlines. I had to expose him before my family lost everything they'd worked generations to build. Marcus and I worked 18-hour days gathering irrefutable evidence. We contacted every one of Derek's previous victims, collecting detailed sworn statements about his methods and criminal behavior. The pattern was identical across all cases. Isolate the target from family support, gain control of finances through manipulation and drugging, then disappear with maximum assets while framing someone else for the destruction. I decided to approach Emma directly at her workplace, hoping to catch her during a clear moment when Derek wasn't monitoring her behavior. But when I waited by her car in the parking lot of the dental office where she worked as a hygienist, her reaction proved how completely Derek had poisoned her mind against me. "Austin, what are you doing here?" Emma screamed, backing away from me with genuine terror in her eyes. "Derek said you might try to approach me at work. He warned me you're having a complete breakdown and might become violent." I tried to explain calmly that Derek was lying to her, that I had evidence he was a criminal who was stealing her money, but Emma wouldn't listen. She was convinced I was stalking her out of jealousy and spite over my failed marriage. Security guards escorted me off the property, while Emma called Derek to report the incident. The encounter was recorded on multiple security cameras, giving Derek perfect ammunition to support his narrative about my increasingly dangerous behavior. Within hours, Derek had filed for a restraining order against me, citing the parking lot confrontation as evidence I was escalating toward violence. Derek also submitted a formal complaint to my employer at Dataflow Solutions, claiming I was using company resources to harass him and his wife. My boss called me into his office for a disciplinary meeting, threatening my job if I didn't stop whatever I was doing to cause these complaints. "I don't care about your personal problems," my supervisor said coldly. "But when your drama starts affecting this company's reputation, it becomes my problem. Fix whatever's going on with your family, or we'll have to discuss your continued employment here." Every move I made played directly into Derek's hands. He'd positioned himself as the victim, while painting me as an unstable ex-brother-in-law who couldn't accept being excluded from his family's life. My isolation became more complete each day, as Derek's lies gained credibility through repetition, and my desperate attempts to expose the truth were twisted into evidence of mental illness. Meanwhile, Derek escalated his timeline significantly after my attempt to reach Emma. Marcus discovered Derek was now planning to convince our family to liquidate major assets during Christmas week, when everyone would be emotional and focused on family unity rather than careful financial planning. Derek had convinced our father to consider selling the construction business to a private equity firm that would allow Dad to retire comfortably while Derek managed the transition as a paid consultant. The firm didn't actually exist, but Derek had created elaborate fake documentation, making it appear legitimate and profitable. He was simultaneously pressuring our mother to sell her inherited property for tax optimization purposes, claiming real estate values would crash in the new year due to economic uncertainty. Derek had even arranged for fake appraisers to undervalue the property, allowing his shell company to purchase it at far below market value. Emma was being pressured to take out a second mortgage on her house to provide additional investment capital for Derek's expanding business ventures. The paperwork was already prepared, requiring only her signature during the Christmas gathering when she'd be surrounded by family encouraging her to trust her husband's business expertise. Marcus suggested we needed to record Derek admitting to his crimes, but it required putting myself in serious danger. Derek was becoming paranoid about my investigation and Marcus's involvement. We needed irrefutable audio evidence that would force my family to confront the truth, even if they didn't want to believe it. The plan we developed was risky but necessary. Marcus would pose as a corrupt private investigator, willing to help Derek frame me for a serious crime that would result in my arrest and permanent removal from our family's life. The meeting would be secretly recorded, hopefully capturing Derek's confession to his entire criminal operation. But Derek's paranoia was growing daily. He'd started varying his routine, checking for surveillance, and questioning Emma about any unusual phone calls or visitors. Marcus warned me that cornered predators often become violent when they sense exposure, especially when millions of dollars and their freedom are at stake. The most terrifying development came when Marcus discovered Derek had been researching how to stage a domestic violence incident that would result in my arrest during the Christmas gathering. Derek planned to manipulate Emma into a public confrontation with me, then claim I'd physically threatened or attacked her in front of witnesses. "He's going to use your desperation to save your family as evidence of escalating dangerous behavior," Marcus warned. "One staged incident in front of your parents, and you'll be arrested for domestic violence." Game over. Marcus and I spent 3 days planning our sting operation with the precision of a military mission. Marcus would pose as a corrupt private investigator named Tony Castellanos, claiming to specialize in evidence fabrication and witness intimidation. He'd approach Derek through intermediaries in the criminal underground, offering to help Derek frame me for a crime serious enough to ensure my permanent removal. The backstory was elaborate and convincing. Marcus created fake credentials, showing Tony's history of helping wealthy clients eliminate problematic family members through manufactured evidence. He established a reputation in online criminal forums, complete with testimonials from satisfied customers who'd used his services to resolve delicate family situations. Derek took the bait faster than we'd anticipated. Within 24 hours of Marcus posting in the right forums, Derek made contact through an encrypted messaging app. He was clearly desperate to find a way to neutralize my investigation before Christmas, and the offer of professional help appealed to his methodical nature. They arranged to meet at a warehouse district outside Phoenix, a location Derek chose because it was isolated and difficult to surveil. Marcus wore recording equipment hidden in his clothing and carried backup devices in his vehicle. I monitored the situation from a safe distance, ready to call police if Derek became violent or suspicious. During the recorded meeting, Derek revealed the full scope of his criminal operation with shocking arrogance. He admitted to drugging Emma regularly to keep her compliant and confused about their financial transactions. He bragged about the sophistication of his identity theft operation and described how he'd researched our family for months before approaching Emma. The sister was perfect, Derek said with disgusting pride. Recent addiction recovery made her vulnerable, and the family had money but not enough security to protect it properly. The brother was the only real threat because she trusted his judgment completely. Derek explained in detail how he'd systematically destroyed my reputation within the family by sharing edited versions of private conversations Emma had with me. He'd recorded phone calls without her knowledge, then spliced together fragments to create audio that made me sound unstable, bitter, and potentially dangerous. I convinced them he was having a breakdown, Derek continued. Every time he reached out for family support, I made sure they saw it as evidence of his deteriorating mental state. Instead of helping him, they started protecting themselves from him. The recording captured Derek's admission that he'd been intercepting my communications with family members, deleting text messages and emails before they could be read. He'd been using Emma's phone and social media accounts to send hostile messages to me, making it appear she was rejecting my attempts at reconciliation. Most damning was Derek's description of his financial crimes against our family. He admitted to stealing over $60,000 from Emma's accounts and revealed his plan to liquidate our parents' assets during Christmas week. He'd already prepared false documentation for property transfers and business sales, requiring only signatures obtained under emotional manipulation. Derek also confessed to his backup plan involving my elimination through false criminal charges. He'd been planting evidence in Emma's house and car that would support domestic violence allegations against me. The plan included staging a confrontation where Emma would appear to defend herself against my supposed attack, with Derek heroically intervening to protect her. Once he's arrested for domestic violence, the family will completely cut contact, Derek explained. They'll see him as a dangerous criminal who threatened their daughter's safety. I'll be the hero who protected her from her unstable brother. The conversation took a darker turn when Derek started asking specific questions about Marcus's willingness to arrange permanent solutions for problematic targets. Derek inquired about making my death appear accidental or suicidal, ensuring I could never expose his crimes or threaten his control over Emma. How difficult would it be to arrange a car accident? Derek asked casually. Something that looks like he lost control during an emotional breakdown. I need him gone permanently, not just discredited. Marcus played his role perfectly, encouraging Derek to reveal more details while secretly documenting every admission. Derek described how he'd studied other criminals' methods through online forums and dark web resources. He'd learned psychological manipulation techniques specifically designed for financial exploitation of romantic partners and their families. But Derek's paranoia suddenly kicked in during the final part of their meeting. He started questioning Marcus's credentials more aggressively and seemed suspicious about the recording equipment Marcus was carrying. Derek's survival instincts had kept him free for over a decade, and something about the situation started triggering his alarm bells. "You're asking a lot of specific questions," Derek said, his demeanor shifting from confident to cautious. "How do I know you're not recording this conversation for someone else?" Derek abruptly ended the meeting and immediately called Emma, warning her that I'd hired a private investigator to fabricate evidence against him. He told her they needed to accelerate their timeline and consider moving out of state immediately for their safety. Marcus and I realized Derek suspected he'd been caught, which meant he might disappear with whatever money he'd already stolen rather than risk exposure. We had one chance to save my family, but it meant revealing ourselves and gambling everything on their willingness to listen to recorded evidence of Derek's confessions. Derek's final threat came through a series of text messages sent to my phone from an untraceable number. He discovered our sting operation and promised to kill Emma and frame me for her murder unless I agreed to take my own life, making it appear as a suicide confession to stalking and harassment charges. "You have 24 hours to drive your car off a cliff," the message read. "Leave a note confessing to harassing my wife and threatening my life. If you refuse, Emma dies and everyone will believe you finally snapped and killed her out of jealousy." I made the desperate decision to crash our family's Christmas gathering with Marcus and all the evidence we'd collected. Derek would be there, and it was my only opportunity to expose the truth before he either disappeared or followed through on his threat to hurt Emma. I knew the family would initially be hostile, but I had to gamble on their love for Emma being stronger than Derek's manipulation. We arrived at my parents' house during Christmas dinner, where the family was gathered around the dining room table that had hosted every holiday meal of my childhood. The sight of my empty chair, now occupied by Derek, felt like a physical blow, but I forced myself to focus on the mission, saving Emma and exposing Derek before he could destroy everything my family had built. My father answered the door with a mixture of anger and disappointment that broke my heart. "Austin, what are you doing here? We told you this gathering was for family only." Behind him, I could see Emma clutching Derek's arm with genuine fear in her eyes, as if I were some dangerous stranger rather than her brother who'd protected her throughout our lives. "Dad, I need 5 minutes to play you a recording that will explain everything," I said calmly, despite my hands shaking with adrenaline. "After you hear it, if you still want me to leave, I'll go and never contact any of you again." Emma started pleading with our parents not to listen, insisting I was trying to manipulate them with fabricated evidence. Her desperation should have been a red flag, but Derek had conditioned them to see her distress as proof of my harmful intentions rather than evidence she was being controlled. But our mother's maternal instincts finally kicked in. She'd been noticing Emma's memory problems, personality changes, and unusual anxiety for months. Something about Emma's frantic insistence that they not listen to any evidence made Mom pause and reconsider the situation. "Let him play whatever he has," Mom said quietly. "If it's lies, we'll know immediately. But if there's even a chance Emma's in danger, we need to hear it." As Derek's recorded confession played through Marcus's portable speaker, I watched my family's faces transform from skepticism to horror to devastation. Derek tried desperately to claim the recording was fake, generated by artificial intelligence, or edited to misrepresent his words. But Marcus had brought backup evidence: financial records, victim testimonies, and police reports from 3 states. Emma collapsed into a chair as the magnitude of Derek's manipulation became clear. She realized her memory problems weren't natural anxiety, but the result of being systematically poisoned. She remembered times when Derek insisted she avoid contact with me, moments when he seemed to know private conversations she couldn't recall having, and financial decisions she'd made while feeling confused and pressured. "I gave him power of attorney last week," Emma whispered in horror. "He said it was for tax purposes, but I signed papers I didn't really understand. I felt so foggy and confused, but Derek said it was just wedding stress." Our father went pale as he realized how close he'd come to signing over his construction business to Derek's fake investment firm. The contracts were already prepared and sitting in Derek's briefcase, requiring only Dad's signature to transfer ownership to a shell company Derek controlled. Mom began crying as she understood Derek had been planning to steal the property she'd inherited from her mother, real estate that had been in our family for 3 generations. Derek had convinced her the market was about to crash, and she needed to sell immediately to protect her investment. Derek's mask finally slipped completely when he realized his con had been exposed. In desperation, he pulled a knife from the kitchen and grabbed Emma, threatening to kill her if anyone tried to stop him from leaving. This final act of violence removed any remaining doubt about his true nature and intentions. "Austin ruined everything," Derek screamed, pressing the blade against Emma's throat. "I had the perfect plan, and he couldn't just let me be happy with his sister. Now she has to pay for his interference." Marcus's partner Jake, who'd been positioned outside, came through the back door and tackled Derek from behind. The knife went flying as Derek hit the floor, finally restrained and facing the consequences of his crimes. Emma sobbed in my arms as police sirens approached, called by neighbors who'd heard the commotion. Derek's arrest triggered a cascade of justice across multiple states. The evidence Marcus and I had gathered led to Derek's prosecution not only for crimes against our family, but also for outstanding warrants in Colorado, Nevada, and Arizona. His romance scam network collapsed as victims came forward, and law enforcement recovered hundreds of thousands of dollars in stolen assets. Emma required months of medical treatment to recover from the chronic poisoning and psychological manipulation she'd endured. She entered therapy with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a specialist in trauma recovery, who helped Emma rebuild her ability to trust her own judgment and memory. The guilt Emma felt about how she'd treated me during Derek's manipulation was almost overwhelming. "I can't believe I chose him over you," Emma cried during one of our first honest conversations after Derek's arrest. "You were trying to save me, and I thought you were trying to hurt me. What kind of sister does that make me?" I assured Emma that Derek was a professional manipulator who'd fooled law enforcement officers and judges across multiple states. His ability to control people's perceptions was his criminal specialty, and she was a victim rather than a collaborator. Our relationship slowly healed as Emma processed the trauma and began remembering events more clearly. Our parents were horrified by their role in Derek's manipulation. They realized their willingness to believe negative things about me during my difficult period had made them perfect targets for Derek's lies. Dad especially struggled with guilt over how quickly he'd accepted Derek's version of events without giving me a fair hearing. "I failed you when you needed us most," Dad admitted during a tearful conversation. A real father would have supported his son through hard times, not abandoned him because life got messy. I let a stranger convince me to doubt my own child. We began family therapy with Dr. Patricia Chen, a counselor who specialized in rebuilding relationships damaged by external manipulation. The sessions helped us understand how families can be vulnerable to predators who exploit existing tensions and insecurities to divide and conquer. Emma moved back into our parents' house temporarily, while recovering emotionally and financially from Derek's theft. She'd lost her savings and faced foreclosure on her house, but the family rallied together to help her rebuild. Dad hired Emma as the office manager for his construction company, giving her stable income and keeping her close while she healed. The family established new rules about transparency and communication. We agreed to support each other through difficult times, rather than making judgments or withdrawing support when life became challenging. Most importantly, we learned to verify information and question sudden changes in family dynamics that didn't feel natural. I helped Emma through her recovery process just as I had during her addiction treatment years earlier, but this time our entire family participated in the healing journey. We discovered that shared trauma, when handled with love and honesty, can actually strengthen family bonds rather than destroy them. Eventually, Emma found love again with Michael Torres, a teacher she met in her support group for fraud victims. I thoroughly vetted Michael's background using the investigation skills I'd learned from Marcus, but he proved to be genuine, patient, and committed to earning our family's trust slowly and transparently. Our father brought me into the construction business as a technology consultant, combining my software development expertise with his building knowledge to modernize operations and expand into commercial projects. Working together healed our relationship while creating new opportunities for family collaboration. Mom used part of the money recovered from Derek's accounts to establish the Emma Austin Family Protection Fund, a nonprofit organization that educates families about romance scams and provides support for victims of financial manipulation. She wanted Derek's crimes to result in something positive that could protect other families from similar predators. I eventually found love with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the trauma therapist who helped Emma recover. Sarah's experience counseling fraud victims gave her unique insight into the emotional aftermath of betrayal, and she helped me process my own trauma from being systematically alienated from my family. Derek received a 15-year federal prison sentence after pleading guilty to multiple charges, including fraud, identity theft, and attempted murder. The other members of his romance scam network were also prosecuted, effectively dismantling an operation that had stolen millions of dollars from vulnerable victims across the country. The following Thanksgiving was the most meaningful our family had ever celebrated. Emma gave a toast thanking me for refusing to give up on our family, even when they'd turned against me. She apologized publicly for doubting me and praised my courage in facing Derek's threats to save her life. Austin taught me that real love means fighting for people, even when they push you away, Emma said through tears. He risked everything to expose Derek because he knew I was in danger, even though I treated him like an enemy. That's the kind of brother everyone deserves. I reflected on the profound life lessons our experience had taught us. Families must support each other through dark times rather than abandoning members when life becomes difficult. True love and loyalty are proven during hardship, not during easy periods when everything goes smoothly. We also learned that predators target families by exploiting existing cracks and weaknesses, making unity and open communication essential for protection. When family members start behaving out of character or making sudden changes to long-time relationships, those changes should be questioned rather than automatically accepted. Most importantly, I discovered that persistence motivated by genuine love can overcome even the most sophisticated manipulation. Derek was a professional criminal with years of experience destroying families, but he couldn't defeat the determination of someone fighting to protect people he truly loved. The experience changed our family permanently, but in positive ways. We became closer, more honest, and more appreciative of the relationships we'd almost lost. Derek's attempt to destroy us ultimately made us stronger and more resilient against future threats. Our Christmas gathering now includes Derek's other victims who have become like extended family members. We support each other through ongoing recovery and share resources for protecting other vulnerable families. What began as Derek's plan to isolate and destroy us evolved into a network of people committed to preventing others from experiencing similar trauma. I keep Derek's mugshot in my desk drawer as a reminder that evil can appear charming and successful while planning terrible destruction. But next to it, I keep photos from our last family gathering, showing everyone laughing and celebrating together. The contrast reminds me that love and truth ultimately triumph over manipulation and lies. Have you ever had to fight for someone you love even when they couldn't see the danger they were in? Family relationships can be complicated, and sometimes protecting the people we care about requires incredible courage and persistence. What would you do if a manipulative person tried to turn your family against you? Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you to cherish your family relationships and stay alert to people who might try to exploit them. Please like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories that matter. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and comment below with your own experiences or thoughts about protecting family from manipulation. Remember that love and truth will always overcome deception, but sometimes it takes incredible courage to defend the people who matter most. Stay strong, stay united, and never give up on the people you love.